Hey everyone, my name is Cole Hergott. I'm the head strength and conditioning coach at Trinity Western University up in Langley, BC, Canada. And today I'm going to be showing you how to use a Brower timing gauge system. Now there's a bunch of different systems out there, and one of my favorite ones is Brower. I've been using them for almost 10 years now. I love them. And I'm going to show you how to set them up, some troubleshooting stuff. We're just going to walk through it piece by piece. So the first thing you got to do is determine what distance are you going to test them on. Are you going to do a 5 meter, 10 meter, 40 meter? How many splits are you going to do? By splits, I mean how frequently are you going to have timers? So more often than not, if we test a 40, we're going to have a timer at the start. So it's going to start at the trigger. We're going to have a timer at the 10, so we get their acceleration. And then we're going to have one at the 30 as well as the 40. That way we get their full 40, but you also get their max velocity, their high speed running from the 30 to the 40. So basically their fastest 10 meters. So that's what you got to figure out first. How far are you going to go? So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have so these are the Browers. So this is what it looks like. There's two different ends. One of them has an antenna. One of them does not. You need to make sure you have both of those or one of each of those to line them up. So let's say this line right here, you can't really see it, but this line right here is our start. It's 0. So I'm going to have one of these on one side and then one of these on the other side. Now you want to make sure that there's enough space for an athlete to run through, but it's also not so far that the beam's not going to trigger. So what we want to make sure is that, again, it's lined up where we want and it's right at the start, it's right at 0. And then what you're going to do is the one with the antenna on it, you're going to, so there's an on-off switch at the back, you're going to hold that button until it beeps. And now it's going to be making that beeping noise. That's good. That means it's on. So we put it on the line 1. Then we take the one that doesn't have the antenna. We do the same thing. We turn it on. It's not going to make a beeping noise. We're not going to hold it. But what happens is when you line up the photocell sensor on the front of each of these, magic. Now it stops making that noise. That means that they are lined up. So that's what you're looking for. Is you want to have one antenna, one non-antenna, and make sure that they line up so it doesn't make the noise. And then from here, I can play around with, I want to make it a little bit further. I want to make it a little bit further on this end, give the athletes more space. Perfect. The next thing I do is I determine our starter. So what happens when you're sprinting is these timers, as you'll see, they're low. The reason for that is if you start them too high, what happens is you have athletes that lean in and they trigger the timer like with their face before they even get going. So, and even that. So what happens is if you and athletes are right in the line, as soon as they bend their knee, they're triggering it and they're not even moving, and then they're going to get bad scores. So what I do is I standardize my start. I grab some cones and I put my foot on the line, and then I just drop the cone behind, foot on the line, drop my cone behind, and then there is where our athletes are going to start. So that's about, now my feet are size 10 and a half, size 11, so with a shoe on, we've got about, maybe a 12-inch or a foot away. So then they're starting here. So then at least it's a consistent start, and then they can go through and actually trigger the beam when they're sprinting, not when, again, they just twitch. So that's how we set up the first gate. But now, again, we have to set up, how far are we going? So if we're just going 10 meters, we make sure that our tape measures out 10 meters, put a cone there, and then we set up the next timers at 10 meters. Again, if we're doing splits, then you're gonna wanna have it at a bigger distance. So I'm gonna turn these off so that it's not beeping at me the whole time. Oh, sorry, actually, I'm gonna show you that. So how we clean these up. So a really good tip that my mentor gave me was you turn the one that doesn't beep first, so the one without the antenna, because then, without this one on, this is gonna beep again. The reason for that is then you know that you still need to turn this one off, and you're gonna save battery. What happens is if you turn this one off first, this one's not gonna make the beeping noise, so you might actually forget to turn this one off, and then the batteries die, and then that sucks. So that's a really good pro tip there. Anyway, so what we're doing from here, now again, we wanna find the distance, so we're going 10 meters, 40 meters, whatever it is. Make sure we're doing it at the splits. So if you're doing it at different splits, you're gonna do this multiple times. But what I like to do, so let's pretend this is we've already done the start, and then we're gonna move on to the next one. So what I do is I have tripods that go bigger. So I will have them go out further. Reason for that is if you have these low ones, again, low ones at the start are good, so that we're not triggering it early with our face. but you want high ones later on, because if they're low, especially with taller athletes, we've had it where they'll actually like step over the beam and then it doesn't catch it. So you want to have something that's higher, so it gets them at about waist or chest height. Like this will hit our athletes right around the belly button, which is perfect. Obviously, make sure that you have your non-antenna and your antenna one. Make sure that the tripods are the same, or at least the same height, so then you're not running into issues that way. But I'm just going to keep setting this up. And then what I'll do is I'll show you how they set up, and then I'll show you the data we get and how we kind of use it. So we're looking like this. Boom. So again, we want to find whatever it is, our 10-meter line. We line those up. So the same thing we did with the start. Turn on our antenna one. It beeps. Turn on our non-antenna one. Make sure they're lined up. So the other thing, you might be able to hear that. That means it's kind of lined up. So what I'll do is, if I put it here, I'll make sure to look down the sights, make sure they're lined up, and then I'll kind of slowly work it up. Boom, boom, boom. And then another thing I like to do is make sure that the distance here is big enough. Now this one probably isn't, but what I'll do is once I have everything set up, I'll go back to the starting gates, and I'll pretend I'm an athlete about to run it, and I'll usually run one at like 50% effort just to make sure everything's lined up. But I want to look at it and say, okay, is this enough space for me to be able to run through it at full effort? I don't want to have to be running through going, oh, I don't want to hit it. I want to be able to hammer through as hard as I can so I can get the best data possible. So make sure that your timers are lined up in a way that you can run through evenly at the start and not kick one over, because that's an expensive cost. But also to make sure that as you're going through, that these ones are probably wider, because you're gonna have athletes that maybe take a step out to the side and you don't, and you don't want them to be given running into the timers, or just not being able to give full effort because they're afraid of that. So give lots of space, hammer down. So now again, let's say these are set up. I'll set them up real quick. So we just turn on the beam, turn on the other beam, boom. Put the cones, again, these are already set up. And then the last piece, so we'll pretend this is 10 meters. The last piece is the device. So this is what the device looks like. All you have to do is you hold the power on button, and then it'll come to life. Perfect. Now there's only really one or two buttons that I play with. There's a bunch of different modes and stuff that, if I'm honest, I haven't really played around with. But I'll show you the way I use it. So if we go to the start, so our timer still says 0, and you wouldn't have an athlete hold this. So what I do is, as a coach, I'm usually standing off to the side. I've got this timer here, and I've usually got a clipboard of every athlete's name, and then I just call them up, or they just line up, and then they sprint through, and I write down their time. So what you're gonna see is, it'll say 0. As you trigger the first timer, the timer's gonna start counting, and then when you trigger the next one, then it's gonna stop. So you can see I ran 3.99 seconds, and so I would write that down on the sheet. I would write that down in Excel. But now the next athlete is going to run. So all you have to do, you'll press, for us, this button that's really worn out, click it, and it restarts. Boom, 0. So then the next athlete, boom, they go up, and I'll just show you from here so you can see it. Boom, it triggers, it starts to count. Boom, triggers again, and it stops. Okay, that athlete got 2.54. You write that down, hit new, easy peasy. That's the Brauer timing system. It's awesome. I really love it. I've used other ones, and this is the one that I did inherit this one, but I'm really glad I did, because I find it works really well. I don't have a ton of issues with it, and that's how it works. Would love to answer any questions if you have them, but good luck out there.